Welcome to our Cafe, where ideas take shape, thought find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He wears many hats: father, educator, creative, dedicated to active listening, and bridging societal divides. None other than Mr. David Deighton. Welcome, Mr. David and Mr. Casa. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
With pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and hello to all your listeners as well. I'm David. I'm a conceptual artist from France living in the United States doing quite unusual project, an art project where
Mm-hmm.
I reach out to strangers in public spaces and I engage them on the subject of politics, the big taboo subject of a polarized country, and find ways for people to communicate non confrontationally without the outrage, without being upset about this taboo subject of politics. And it's been a really incredible ride. And I have a lot of fun doing this.
Yes,
Yeah.
having fun is good. And thank you so
Mm.
much for sharing your fun to the world, Mr. David.
Woohoo!
Thank you for that fun and knowledge and wisdom. So today let's talk about engage, listen, embrace commonalities. So think of a time you successfully engage with someone who initially seemed close off or different from you. What was your entry point for the first move?
Oof, that's a tough one, right? You have to have a way to have that conversation with someone you may disagree with, right? And I've chosen artistic expression to do it. And I go to special places, public spaces that are open to a lot of people, free speech areas in the United States, such as in national parks and free speech areas. And there I engage with strangers and ask them three non confrontational political questions. And guess what? People are always ready to answer these things because they're in a really cool environment, something new, and they're not going to be judged for it because all I'm going to do is ask them the questions and listen to what they have to say. And then I find one thing I have in common with them, and that's my bridge to them. And I offer that as a way for other people to have these conversations with people they no longer speak to because of their different political opinions or family members they no longer speak to because of their political opinions, and offer them a way to do it. And I think we all know that this is a way to do it. It's just having the courage to take that step and speak to that person. So all the conversations that I have, they can be difficult at the beginning because I might not be comfortable with what they're saying back to me. There might be trigger words that they say that upset me. But after practice and practice, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of these encounters, well, it's easier to find the humanity in the other. And that's where I'm at today.
Yes, definitely. And
Mm.
Mr. David, in a world of full of distractions, what does a true engagement look and feel like to you in one conversation?
Right. So there's so many distractions out there, right? We're often on our phones, yeah, and uh, and we're very distracted on those, and we're led into rooms, echo chambers, areas that correspond to what we want to see, that distract us most. The algorithms got it pretty well down, right? They take us to these places and tug us along to a little bit more extreme, a little bit more, something that might be more enticing to spend more time on the digital device. And well, there's not much, it's not going to be much connection between each one of us if we spend all our time on these devices. Lots of cool things we can do with them, but This little, well, I'm here to offer a little nudge to go out there and reach out to the other, them. There shouldn't be a them, it's all we really, and find things that we have in common. So it's about putting down our digital devices and finding time for others and taking a little step. It's a big political step too when we do that. It's like it's an activist thing that each one of us can do to talk to another, especially a stranger. I mean, why not? Why
Why
not just
not?
have those conversations?
Why not?
Mm,
Yes, why not?
mm,
Has there ever been a moment where you had to choose between being a right or being a connected? And what did you learn from that choice, Mr. David?
mm. Right. Um, well, being right is not really the direction I'm going in. It's going to be looking for connection. There's one, especially we take a taboo subject, politics. We have opinions or not. We don't want to talk about it, or we do. We feel a certain way about this or that. We're not going to really change the other person, be able to convince them of our opinion and that our opinion is better than theirs. And that just ferments division. If we're in a conversation with someone else about politics, I suggest that we just listen with all of our senses, actively listen, not looking for the response of how you're going to get back at them on such and such idea and prove them wrong. Why not just we give them space to just say what they have to say, try not to get triggered by the words that upset us. That's a tough one, but at least we learn something about ourselves when we do that. And then there's usually the connection happens when we find an emotion that they have rather than a fact or opinion. They're angry about politics, let's say. They're frustrated about the government or something. That word, frustrated, anger, whatever, you find one word you have in common. If you disagree with everything they have to say, I tell them that. I tell them, you know what? I'm that opposite that you hate, that you say you hate. I'm actually that person. It just ends up I'm that person. But you know what? There is that one thing I have in common. I'm also angry. I'm also frustrated. And that gives them something to think about. Even if it doesn't go any further than that, we've had that moment. And they're short conversations. When you have them with somebody, when the occasion comes up, they only last on average 2.5 minutes. That's it. But it's transformational. The other people are usually very receptive. I say usually, they all have been receptive. It's pretty crazy. I was surprised when I started this almost 10 years ago that I thought people would be upset. They wouldn't want to talk about it. They'd avoid it. They'd get angry. But the whole point is then there's all they hear is themselves. What's there to be upset about?
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah,
only yourself, really. Yeah.
definitely. Mr. David, what's a simple, practical ritual or habit you use to mentally show up and are fully present before an important meeting or conversation?
Right. So that can apply to all walks. If you're in business or an artist like me that goes off and meets strangers in unusual places. And I say unusual because I also do my art project on top of mountain peaks or on trails. And it's about the space, really, right? I've chosen a busy street corner is not going to do it. The streets of New York, when people are running, going to one place or the other, where I'm in Paris, when people are going places, it's just not going to happen. However, in a park or something like that, the interactions are better when the occasion arises. It's where you're at, and also in business, you're not if you're going to talk about something sensitive, you're going to think about who's around you, who's involved in the conversation, and what about the space? Is everything ready? Is everybody relaxed? Can we have this conversation now? Is now a good time? And those are the things. It's about the time and the place and your mental attitude at the time, right? And I think we all think, oh, that makes total sense. Yeah, David's not telling me anything new today, right? But we need a little bit of reminding and the structure that comes with it and the impetus for action. And if I may, I'd take it to another question because I have a question for myself a little bit. It's like, why even do this, right? Why would
Yes.
you even bother doing this, right? Why would I bother? I mean, I know my own reasons. My reasons are as I see society increasingly divided, polarized politically. I meet a lot of people that have broken relationships with some with their children, with family members, with coworkers, because they didn't agree with what that other person had to what their political positions were. Right?
Mm.
That's a shame to me. Right? There shouldn't be a taboo. As an artist, I love to explore taboo subjects because that's where creativity. I don't want any restrictions on creativity. For me, art we all are artists in the sense that we act with intention, and all actions to me are also political actions. Regardless, when you kick that pebble on the street, it has repercussions, it has consequences, even minute, but in the end, in a global scale, they do. And why I do it is a deep need to reconnect with the other and to realize that there is no other and that we're all we, especially the ones that have we thought had nothing to do with us, right? That we're completely the opposite of who we thought we were. Taking that is like a travel, an exploration. You can travel in your own backyard, in your own neighborhood, just meet somebody different, and you're going to have an incredible experience most of the time. Yeah, I'd say if you can let those trigger words just wash off. Yeah.
The opposite. So, Mr. David,
Mm,
engagement often
mm.
requires vulnerability. How do you navigate the risk of being the first to be open, especially in a professional or unfamiliar setting?
These are really good questions. Yeah, thank you for thinking about that. Yeah, vulnerability. Um, Phew, well, I'll tell you a little personal story. As an abstract artist, I've worked for decades as an anonymous artist under different names, artist names,
Hmm.
also anonymously as a street artist. They would see the art, but they wouldn't know who did it. And it's just, um, you're not vulnerable in those aspects, right? You're,
Yes.
you're vulnerable when you approach face to face the other. And if they're a mirror of who you are, you're looking at a bit of yourself. And I think that's where if you surrender to that, there's your vulnerability, right? If you're willing to do that. But if you're willing to do that, there's a lot less, you're less vulnerable because you're there, you're listening, you're being present for the other person, and then therefore for yourself as well. It's a good exercise. It's not for everyone, but you can try a little bit at a time and see where it takes you. This is all about my project is all about the invitation to do such things, to speak to the people we're not supposed to talk to, the stranger, the other, them.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh,
Strangers.
mm.
And Mr. David, we often listen to respond, not to understand. What physical or mental cue reminds you to switch into a deep listening mode?
Woo. Okay, so this is more of a spiritual practice,
Yes.
and so for me as an artist, I try to explore all the senses, right? So when
Yes.
I'm having an interaction with the other, there's going to be listening. Okay, I'm going to listen in. I'm going to look at them, right? Okay, now I've got the other senses. What do those look like? Now I'm going to throw in the mind as well as a sense, as a sixth sense. But just on the five that are typically used in the West, right? So we have, we have the sight and the hearing. But how about taste and smell and touch? Are you going to touch the other person? That's not going to go down very well with a stranger, right? Wouldn't recommend it. Smell them. Ooh, that's a bit odd, right? Taste them. That's like out of the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I explore how do you get to those senses where you can use all your senses. So what I'll do is, well, I try to acknowledge all my surroundings and where we're at. I mean, that's important. But when I'm talking to the other, I want them also to explore their senses. So rather than to say, "Can you smell that? Can you see that?" Ask them this. I always do the same format. It's like almost a ritual of sorts. I use three questions that I invite people to use, and the questions are: how would you describe the political system of the United States of America? Because I'm in America right now. So it could be France, it could be India, whatever. Um, second question, and then people respond, and I'm just listening, finding some word that I have in common because I've engaged, I'm listening, finding something in common. Second question I ask them is describe your feelings or reactions to the current state of US politics. And then I get some more cues. I'm looking for commonalities, and that's going to be usually not a fact or opinion. It's going to be an emotion that I agree with. And then I'd have a little game where they finish the sentence, and the sentence is politics in the United States, blank, you finish the sentence. And through that process, the person is kind of getting their thoughts together and they're bringing it down to a core, something tight of how their mindset is. And then I ask them for this. I ask them for one word. This is the hardest one. Like, hey, give me a word that brings all your thoughts together. It's tough to find that word, right? That word can be, I mean, often it's interesting enough, they might say how horrible things are, blah, blah, blah. But hope is often the word that comes up. I found that really interesting. Out of the hundreds of times I've done this, people come up with the word hope, regardless if they're on the left or on the right, they have hope for the future. And they have hope for people to communicate, or they have hope for, anyway. I take that word, that last word, which I call a title word, and I bring them into another art installation. And I ask, okay, let's say the word is hope. And I ask somebody, and I say, what does hope taste like? What does democracy taste like? And they're like, what? Oh, that's weird. What do you mean? What does it taste like? No, give me like a food or something. What does it taste like? And they'll go, oh, stereotypically in the United States is, you know, cherry pie or something like this, you know? So they might, if they find it sweet, it'll be something like a dessert. If they find the current affairs in the United States to be quite sour. They'll be like, oh, it tastes like a rotten lemon or something like this. That's the way it tastes. But if there's a moment where they're thinking like, oh, what does a word taste like? And it takes you to another, it takes them to another place, a place of reflection to think kind of outside of the box on that. And that would apply as well about what does it sound like, right? And if you were to touch it, what would it feel like? And so those type of expressions, and to think about the the senses and use the word, and maybe the word that you found is the commonality, and explore that. If you want to take the conversation in an odd direction, try that one. And you can use this exchange that we're having, this conversation we're having right now, as an example. You said, you know, I heard this wacky artist, you know, this is what he does. He goes out and meets people and he asks them these three questions. I like to ask you the three questions. And then you find one word, and that's the commonality. And it's super interesting. Like, what do you do with that word? And use senses and think about it. And you'll take the subject into a new direction, which is away from facts and opinions, which are usually where the outrage and the anger can be in a political conversation. And you create a bridge. And I'm all about bridges. I love bridges.
Interesting, Mr. David. And silence can be powerful part of listening. When
Mm.
have you found that not feeling the silence created a breakthrough in understanding?
Well, certainly, yes. Um, that's where you're listening. You're actively listening, using all your senses, and you're paying attention to the other, and not being triggered by words or thinking about what you have to say at that time, right? Um, and you want to be present. So there's going to be silence. And actually, it's interesting when you're listening to the other. There's distractions out there. There's people walking by. There's a car. There's a the horn of a car going on or something. You don't actually hear those things anymore, especially when you're in a question when you ask somebody, you know, what democracy tastes like. There's the world just kind of stops. You're almost more like in communion with them, connection with the other person. And so there's a silence, there's an inner silence that takes place, especially the more unusual the question is, the more a silence creates itself because your mind is concentrated on that question or your exploration inside to answer to the other. Sometimes I wonder, why do even people answer my questions, frankly? I'm just a stranger that they meet in the street. But the questions that they're asked are ones that people are thirsty to answer these days because nobody them those questions, right? It's not they're taboo subjects, but that we kind of repress and keep within us because nobody wants to ask because they don't want to get angry. They want, you want to be civil to the other person. However, if it comes online and you're on the social media and there's a political question that comes up, a taboo subject, oh, you're all out there and giving it, thumbs down and saying what you have to say and maybe being really rude to the other person because they're never going to see you. But it's different when you're face to face. And in a time of greater cell phone use and digital age and the rise of AI, we're going to need to communicate in person and have that connection. We've been like this for millennia. It's in us. So we're going to have to find outlets because there's a loneliness and depression and all these things that come from the lack of connection with others. And true connection using all the senses can be very helpful. And it's weird coming from an abstract artist that was always into political activism and all this, and here I am talking about communication. But it is at the basis and at the core. It's the structure. It's the foundation, right? If we don't do that, I mean, it's certainly not coming from the top echelons in government or commercial or any of this. They're not. That's not how it works, right? We're forced to be reckoned with when we communicate to one another, and we're able to go from one echo chamber and speak to people in another echo chamber and listen and be there and learn. Mm, that's where the listening's
Yes.
in.
Yes,
Mm.
definitely. And
Mm.
Mr. David, is there a person in your life who embodies these three principles masterfully? What is about the presence or method that makes them so effective?
Mm. Oh, well, I've rarely met, it's very rare to meet somebody that encapsulates all that. I don't think I'm even me that practices this. I'm not the perfect example. There's so many flaws in how uh, we are in our presence with others. It'd be very rich experience to meet somebody that's able to maintain that space. I think we just do the best we can when the opportunity arises to have that conversation, ask some questions, listen, be there, find something you have in common, and express your difference as well. Like, I'm different than what you express something, I'm that other person. Show that to the other, but show that you have something in common. And that I think is in all of us. So there's not a singular person as much as the element that is within each one of us, maybe deep down in there. But by practice, it comes out and it blossoms. I like that. Blossoms, yeah.
I like that blossoms. It
Mm.
blossoms. Yes. Good job, Mr. David. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm
Mm.
inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in a sixth season this coming December. Abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book 101 review as well as sixth season too. Comedy 101 third season, and my food 101 and sixth season as well. Geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 of fifth season, science 101, sex 101 and third season of my baby podcast. Law 101, mental health 101, Bible verses 101, and this coming December, Entrepreneur 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. David, if you could instill one mindset in every person about how to connect with others, what would it be and why?
Is just take action. It's all about those three words, right? You engage, you listen, find commonalities, you know?
Yes.
And if you want to see what that looks like, well, I think you're going to put a link to Triptych Dialogue. You can see a lot of
Yes.
my wacky artwork, how I've done it. There's installations, the art installations, there's things, there's all the words you see on there. They're ones that other people gave me when they were answering the three non-confrontational questions, and practice those. Try them.
Mm.
Listen to what other people had to say, and then try those out. I have a lot of different expressions in there, so you'll also see books that I hand out to people that are repurposed, things I find in the recycling bin, and I reuse, and I put the questions in them, and I drop them off in park benches, and people use those, and then they use them as tools and excuses to have conversations with others. Like, you met me today, but what if you met that book and it had the same three questions? It's the excuse that you have to have the conversation with the other, and to create an action to have a positive effect, to create that foundation we were talking about. Mhm.
Yes, create that foundation, people, to have those three commonalities.
Mhm.
Ah, Mr. David Deighton, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Abstract Essay?
Well, that's it. Go to Triptych Dialogue, right? Go check out my YouTube channel. It's TRIPTYCH Dialogue, DIALOGUE. And go check it out.
Check it out,
There we go.
people. Check it out. Check it out, please.
On
Let
YouTube. On YouTube.
Yes, let's support Mr. David Dicton, because if you support him, for sure, more and more triptych dialogue will arise. So, Mr. David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, Mordecai people, see you soon.